Hi, in this particular lesson, we are going to learn two main problems that you are likely to face as a beginner graphic designer. These two problems are problems that almost every beginner designer comes across. I know by now you probably have heard someone say that as for me, I'm not good at choosing colors or I'm not good at combining colors. Yes, so that is one of the problems. And the second problem is someone saying that when I do the design, to me it may look nice, but other people tell me that my design is not nice. Or people look at my design, they have different thoughts about it. So how do I make my design standard? Or how do I make my design up to what the experts are also designing? Well, that's what we want to learn in this lesson. So basically, this is put into two folds. We have one, what is referred to as the principles of design. So we are going to look at some of the basic design principles. Then we'll look at color theory and color combination to curb the problem that you are likely to face as a beginner designer. So let's begin with the design principles. All right, so there are a number of the design principles, and personally, when I started graphic design, I had no clue that something like this existed, and I never paid attention to it. So I was just designing anything at all, and I had people critiquing my work all the time. So it was with practice that I began to learn that certain things actually run through designs that are nice. So I began studying what makes a difference. I went online to do searches, and I came across the principles, the design principles. I was so amazed. This happened about 3 years ago, and ever since, all the designs that I've been doing, even when it is the least of them, it still stands out, and people do appreciate any design that I do. So let's go on. Then I'll show you exactly what these design principles are. There are a lot of them, so we are not going to be able to cover all of them, but also I don't want to overwhelm you with the terms and the various principles. However, we are going to take them lightly and look at a few of them so that you have a fair idea and try to apply some of them in your designs. So for here, I've listed some of them. We have alignment, we have hierarchy, proximity, repetition, contrast, balance, space, and proportion. So I'll take a few of them that we discuss. One thing that I have to be quick to add is that you don't necessarily need to apply all of these principles in one design, but at least whenever you apply them, some people or everybody who sees your work will see some level of difference. So design, even though design or how nice a design is subjective, everybody will actually appreciate a nice design. Once a design is nice, definitely they will appreciate it. And two things makes a design nice: following the principles and also choosing the right colors and combining them rightly. That will make your design nice. So let's go ahead and talk about alignment, and I want to use practical sessions to explain these ones. So let's go back to our Canva account and try designing something and look at how alignment can ruin our design or can make it nice. So today, let's choose. Okay, so let's still go with the Instagram post. All right, so one thing you would have to note is when you talk about alignments, is basically what you know, align, to be able to align the design element. So any design at all that you are doing, alignment is key. As for if you don't follow any of the design principles at all, you should make sure that you align the work in a certain pattern. You should create a certain pattern in terms of the alignment. It is very important. So when we bring out any of the templates in Canva, at least those are the standard that we are using right now. So when you bring out any of the templates, you realize how they've applied the alignment, and I want you to appreciate it. So for the one that we edited yesterday, let's appreciate something here. You realize that this text has been aligned such that we have this bulk of text in the same, is all aligned on the same line with the name of the person and the person's position. All right, so there is some sort of alignment, and if you look critically, you see that this one to this image here is also aligned at the end of this one. Like there is some sort of alignment between them, because we don't really have a ruler in here. you can't really tell. But anytime you are doing a design, all the elements that you are bringing, there should be some sort of alignment. And there are three different kinds of alignment. Okay, actually there are four of them, but we commonly use three of them. The first one is the left align. So you can decide to align your elements to the left hand side. You can also decide to use the center align, where the blocks come centrally, so they may go downwards. It depends on how you put it. And we also have the right align, where you align the text to the right side, or the elements to the right side. So another thing that is worth mentioning over here is that the news, which is serving as the logo here, is also aligned with this side, such that when if you should put a ruler here, you realize that they are on the same line. So this is very key. Anytime you are doing any sort of design, even the top here, you realize that there is some sort of alignment between the news and this particular circle. So make sure you pay attention to that in any of your designs. Let's go ahead and choose a different design and see. Or we should try and create our own. All right, so let's just delete everything. I want to delete everything and start from scratch. Okay, let's use a white background. All right, so for instance, let's start with text. If you want to use just images in your design, let me go and copy a dummy text, lorem text block. I'm just copying a dummy text for the purpose of our design. Okay. All right, so let's assume I'm writing something. You see how scattered this text is? If you should present this as your final work, maybe somebody wanted just a quote. So let's put a name to this quote and say this is the quote that you are designing by Dr. Ehonia Obed. So once you present this work to someone, they realize that no, you don't know what you are doing, or your work is not nice. Someone will just look at it. Ah, why? What were you trying to do? So, however, this has been aligned. Rather, it is center aligned. So it is not always the case that you use center alignment. Center alignment should be used when you are dealing with text. If you are going, your words is going beyond three lines, it's not advisable. If it's the first three lines, two lines, or even sometimes you can extend it to four lines. By looking at the number of lines here, it's not comfortable trying to read. It's a bit challenging trying to read this thing. So anyone here at all, no matter who they are, whether the person is a designer or a non-designer, when they see something like this, they know that you did the wrong thing or your design is not nice. So let me just give it a background so that at least you have a feel of what is it. So let's choose a background. Let's use this one. And okay, and I want to bold in some parts to show the important aspect. Okay, so now no, even with this we still cannot really see. Will I choose? Okay, let me choose this one. Then let's make this white. So if somebody said you should do a quote for them to share on their social media, and you give them something like this, one, it is too busy and the alignment is not the best. As I have mentioned to you, if you are going beyond four lines or even three lines, use that as your maximum. If you are going beyond three lines, don't use center alignment. So let's try realigning this and use. So here is the alignment. So let's use the left align. This is left align. Then you create some sort of, okay, so let's bring this. We want to create some sort of alignment. So as you can see, Canva itself is suggesting some space for us. Since we've used this, if you leave it this way, even though it's nice, it's not the best, because now you have this left aligned and you have created this as a center align. So I would rather prefer that you bring this also to align it left. Then this looks better. So that anybody at all who is reading knows that this is you. Let me duplicate this work, then we try and compare them. One, let's just decrease the size a bit, go to 36. Okay, so that I can space this one, and we'll do same for this, but rather we'll make this center align. Okay, at least this is getting shape a bit because of the space that you've created. Yeah. Okay, so now you realize that it's making a bit of sense because I've divided the text into two and I've given them center alignments. But even with that, if it is a continuous text, it is not ideal. So let's try and compare and contrast. So if you want to see all of them on a grid, this side, grid view, click on the grid view. Okay, so now as we can see here, this one and this one, it depends. So now this is also looking a bit good, but I think I would prefer personally I would prefer this over that because this looks nicer and it's all because of the alignment. So now let's try and bring an image in here. And if you are bringing an image in here, it means you have to push this to the side so that your image can be at the side. So first of all, I want to bring a frame. In as much as we are demonstrating the the principles, I'm also trying to teach you how to use the various elements. So make sure you're paying attention to it. Okay, so now I'm trying to bring this image to this side. Okay, so here I would illustrate two different things. Okay, so you see how the left align is making room and it's still looking nice as compared to the center align that we used. See how the center align doesn't look its best now. Okay, so let me copy this and paste it here. All right, let me remove the name. So I don't have enough space, so I can do this. Okay, okay, let me also move the name and then be sure. All right, let's bring in an image. So this is a frame. When you put the image in, it's going to fill it. In the previous lesson, we uploaded an image of myself, so I'll bring that one in. So as you can see, and let me put this one here to the other side. Why? Okay, so it has come now. You can change the frame. It's because of how the frame is. So the frame is such that it's as if you've torn the image. So what I can do here is this, so that it will look as if some part of the image was torn. So over here, everything is about creativity. Whether you be a good designer or not, it's based on your own ability to be creative. So you have to be ready to experiment with things. Okay. Okay. So I can decide. Anyway, let me me squeeze this one a bit. It's not the best. Okay, let me go here and look for a different picture to put in that side of the frame. Reduce the size. Oh, sorry. So this image too won't fit. Or better still, for now, let me just change the frame. Let me change the frame to something simple that we can use. Okay, so let's use this. Okay, so let's use this for the time being, and I'll put this inside. All right. Let's copy this and paste it here. Okay, so at least we have two different designs, and if you are asked to choose one, which one will you choose? So you may think that they all look the same, but if someone with a designer eye or even the layperson looking at it will feel that this second one is better looking than this. And the only reason is because now your center align, you have more than three lines and it's making it a bit difficult to read, but it's easy to read this than for the center align. So note this, that anytime you are doing a design, the alignment, if you are going to use center align, try and use not more than three lines. If it goes to the fourth line, will pardon you, but beyond that, don't use the center align. Try and use either the left align, the justify. So the justify is where it is both even on both sides. So let me show you when to use the right alignment. In case this image was on this left hand side rather, then this was here. This doesn't really make sense when you are using the left align, even though you could still go ahead and use the left align. But because the image is to its left, you can decide that you want to create some sort of alignment because you realize that at this end there is no alignment on the right hand. You are aligning to your image, which is also okay, but you can in this instance use the other edge to be the alignment. So you rather use the right align here. You can use the right align here. Let's just reduce the size so that it will fit in perfectly. Then when somebody watches this, this is nicer than the previous one. Okay, so let me quickly duplicate this, then change this back to left align. Okay, all right, so these two works anyway, because now there is enough space here, and as you can see now, because I've reduced the size, you have more sort of an alignment on the other side. So because of that, this left align to is looking good as well. However, this also is not bad because you are using one end to be well aligned so that just at the site of your design, the person is able to see that you have aligned your work neatly. So these are the instances where you can use the alignment. Another important principle that I want to talk about is, let me show you, spacing, or what we call white space, or even sometimes negative space. So it's very important. Let me show you something. Assuming I did this, and let me do same here. So we have this. Okay, then this. You see, all of a sudden the design doesn't look nice again. At least to me, all of a sudden the design doesn't look nice again. And the only different thing here is because we have removed the space. So you want to do what to keep enough space. We call it give them a breathing space. So for each of your design element, they should at least have some sort of breathing space. Unless if you are putting them together. So we have a number of the rules that you need. For example, proximity. For proximity is the principle that says that for the similar objects, put them side by side or put them together, let them get closer to each other. So if you are applying proximity to a set of design elements just to create an effect, then there is no need giving that space. Even with proximity, sometimes we need to give it space. Okay, so spacing is very essential. So if you don't use any of the principles at all in your design, make sure the alignment is there and make sure that spacing is also there. So let's space it out a bit and let's finally evaluate the work that we have done with the spacing. So I would even prefer that you get even space on both sides of the design. So for the image for instance, as it has some sort of space to the right, to the left, so we have to give it some sort of space there so that we will give it enough space for it to breathe. Okay, I think this is all right. We can open this small. Okay, it's too much space here. All right. Another principle that I've applied right now in this particular design is balance. So I'm trying to create some sort of balance in here where, let me just bring a rectangle and show you what I mean. Where's the rectangle or a line? Okay, let's use a straight line. So as you can see, I have some space up here. Let me just put it on top. Yes, so I've left some space on top here for this test, and I've tried to do the same thing down here. Okay, I've tried to do the same thing down here so that my design will be uniform. So even without saying much or telling anybody, when they look at this design, you see the mark, there is a mark there that is telling me that it's in the middle. Okay, so what I'm trying to achieve is I'm trying to achieve some sort of a balance. The space that I've left above the image should be similar to the space that I've left beneath it. Also, the space that I've left at the left hand side should be similar to the space that I've left at the right hand side. So this is some sort of a balance that we are creating. So the design principle we are using there is balance. So over here we've used alignment, we've used spacing, we've used balance. The next thing we want to look at is hierarchy. Hierarchy is also very, very important. At the site of your design, the person should be able to tell where your focus is or where you want them to focus. So we use hierarchy, and with hierarchy, sometimes if you are using text to do the hierarchy, you want to use different font sizes to show the hierarchy so that when you visit this, I want you to see this first. So you realize I boldened a certain part. So the next thing I can do, I can use color to also differentiate it so that it creates that sort of hierarchy, or in the more technical term, we'll call it some sort of contrast, which will catch your attention when you look at it. So let me prefer use this and bolden that. Okay, it doesn't really stand out with this color, but at least you get the idea. So something should attract the person, knowing that, oh, this is the more important aspect. Okay, so if somebody sees a design like this, they know that this part that has been differentiated or has been made to stand out is the more important part. So let's create a new design and I'll show you how to do the hierarchy the more. So for instance, if I want to say something, maybe very important. Yeah, so I have this design. Let me reduce it a bit. Okay, then put it, align it centrally. So here you see there are some guys to help me align it centrally. Okay, then I would bring another text. and I'll say after let me use after you have read the above, you are to likely likely to read me next. Okay, so let's reduce this and put it here. I want to show you something. This actually works. Before you finally care to even read me. And let me reduce this a bit further. Okay. So this is just for the illustration purpose. If you see a design like this, the first thing that you are drawn to is very important, because that's what is attracting you. So this is hierarchy. I need you or the person who is going to check this design to see the hierarchy, the very important first. And the next thing I need them to see is this text before they will finally want to see this. So I'm using the different font sizes to show some sort of hierarchy. This is more important than this. And after here, you can then move to here. Okay, so anytime you are doing a design, it is if you have a message that stands out from the others, you want to use hierarchy to bring it out, so that even if the person does not get time to read everything, you should have shown them what you wanted them to see. Okay, so this is very important. There is no way somebody will read, very important, and try to read what is here before they come to read the second one. So what I'm saying is the person will read this first, jump over this to read this, because the way you have presented it, this is more important, even though it doesn't follow the very one sequentially. Okay, if you had put it sequentially, it's the same way the person would have read it. Even if you put it sideways, even if you put it sideways, it's because of the size difference that is creating that sort of hierarchy. The person will jump after reading this one to read this before they will finally come to read that. Okay, so it's also good when you use hierarchy to inform people or to give out the message that you want to give out. So this is also one of the principles that you can apply. So at least we've covered alignments, we've covered spacing, we've covered balance, we've talked about a hierarchy. The next thing I want to talk about is contrast. So with contrast essentially means that the thing should stand out on its own. So for instance, I use this background. Let me duplicate that. I use this background, and if I should go ahead and use blue as the text, are you able to read it? No, you can't read this. It's very difficult for you to read. So there's no contrast between my background and the text itself. Hence, anytime you're doing a design, you want to make sure that you establish some sort of contrast so that we are able to see exactly what you want. So that's why I prefer you. Let's try black and you see if it makes sense. All right, black. So this is black. You still can't really make it out, so you know that black is not an option here. Let's come to this gray. At least the gray comes out a bit, you can read it, but if you want more contrast, then you can adjust it to white, and white will let it be very visible. So as you can see now, you can read it. So anytime you are creating any sort of design, make sure you use contrast, and colors are one way to create contrast. If you use two light colors together, let me add a new page, delete this, change this to yellow. I want a very light yellow. Okay, so usually when you come to this color wheel, or the color, when you come to this color rectangle where you choose your colors, the lighter ones are up here. So let's say I choose this yellow and I want to write in it, so test, then my heading, and for this particular heading I want to change the color to a lighter color too. So let's assume I use a lighter form of this. You see the challenge. You find it difficult to read this because there isn't much contrast between them. So anytime your background is a lighter one, you want your text to be a bold one so that there will be that kind of contrast. The contrast is necessary. It just implies that it stands on its own. It stands out of the background. It stands out of the meaning. So there is some sort of contrast means that it stands out of the meaning. All right. So I can just change this. Let's see if I change this to black. Isn't this cool? So because now there is enough contrast, you can easily read it without bothering your eye at all. So an important thing here, make sure that you apply contrast. We've talked about spacing, hierarchy, we've talked about alignment. Alignment is key, and spacing too is important. All of these, you don't necessarily need all of them in a single design, but at least try and apply some of this. Check the notes for a link to a site where you can read more on the design principles. However, I don't encourage you spending more time on design principles right now. What I rather encourage you to do is spend time trying to analyze people's design. So, for instance, if you take this design, what do you think makes it nice? Okay, so if you try replicating other people's design, you realize the design principles are being used in there and you learn when to use what. So, for instance, this there is a hierarchy here, there is some sort of hierarchy here. Even though the seabed furniture is first, I would rather read add a heading before I even read seabed furniture. And the seabed furniture is capitalized and is a bit bigger than this. So once I'm done reading add a heading, I'll read seabed furniture before I even come to read it. Try it out. If at first sight, then focus on where your eye goes to and what follows next. Okay, so something like this, just by looking at this particular design, I know that, oh, okay, so there's some sort of hierarchy here. So I don't really need to go and sit down and memorize what is hierarchy, where to put it, and everything. No, but practically as you go along, you master it from people's design. So that's why I encourage you to look at other, get inspiration from other people's design. So when you get that sort of inspiration, then you can also begin to apply it in your design. So something like this too, you know, there is some sort of spacing and you try to get some equal spacing between this and that. So that is also essential. That is some sort of balance. Here they are applying the balance principle where the space between below the heading to this is also the same as the below here to that. So always try and use any of these. Then you can try and also go through all the various design principles and see how to apply them so that at least you have them at the back of your mind throughout your design journey, and pretty soon you will begin to pick them and apply them as and when you design. This is one thing that will make your design outstanding. So you can see that this is just some simple design that we've done over here, but if you are to share this, let me just give it the space that I talked about. Make sure there is some sort of balance. Okay, okay, all right. So this is very simple. This design won't take you more than a minute or two to do. You can easily do something like this. And when you send it out there, everybody will appreciate it because it's a nice design. And it's a nice design because you applied the simple principles. All right. So in the next app lesson, we'll look at how to use colors or how to combine colors. I'll see you in the next lesson.